Let's turn to Martin Luther King Jr.'s address, which he gave at the Lincoln Memorial. As you pull that out, I just make a couple quick remarks about his background as a speaker. He had church upbringing, and already when he was just about 9 or 10 years old, he would astonish members of his family and friends with his ability to speak. He had it. Don't forget, when he gives this address, he is a young man. I think he's in his middle 30s. He's something like 34 when he gives this address. So he has this ability from a young age. He goes to Morehouse College at age 15. So he's precocious in a good way. He studies systematic theology. He ends up getting an advanced degree from Boston University, across the river. You've been to the Lincoln Memorial, perhaps, and what does it look like? How would you describe it if you just saw it from a distance as a building? It's a secular temple. And when you walk inside, there are a couple of texts in it. Does anyone remember what those texts are or might be?
One of them is the Gettysburg.
One of them is the Gettysburg Address. Any guess what the second one is?
Second inaugural?
Yes, the second inaugural. Both very short and both remarkable, and we'll be looking at both of them. Lincoln is sitting there with these flanked by these two texts. This is the setting. What else is the setting of this address? It's important to know. What is the context of this address?
Like a march on Washington.
Yes, it's a huge march on Washington. There are hundreds of thousands of people there. Many of them have come from the south. Some of them have come from the north by the busload. Hundreds of thousands of people. The first mass public march of dissent, and one could say to some degree, although there had been previous marches, certainly in the United States, of protest, but to some degree, sort of the godparent of all the subsequent various kinds of marches that have occurred in the United States as matters of political or dissenting statement. So this is quite remarkable. He mentions the Emancipation Proclamation right at the beginning of the speech. Let's look at the address. I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. I would suggest that's the introduction. That's it. Period. Right there. How many sentences is it? It's a single sentence. Don't forget that when you're thinking about introductions. Sometimes short and sweet is really the best. Occasionally not, but is Martin Luther King Jr. well known to this audience? Sure. Does he have to introduce himself? No. This introduction is pro forma, but it's very polite, it's very direct, it's absolutely sufficient. Then we begin, and I mentioned this before, what this 50 years ago suggests to you. Might suggest a couple different things, but in terms of rhetorical principles and organization of an address, what does it suggest to you? Vinny? It does. First of all, it's an echo of the Lincoln speech at Gettysburg 77 years ago. So that's a, it's an echo that says maybe it's obvious, but it's an interesting echo. In part, it's not just a verbal echo, because what is he invoking? He's invoking the spirit of that Gettysburg Address. So there's an invocation. It's an illusion that has some force behind it. But it's also the beginning of the narratio, because it's a date, it's a time, it's a span. And so he's saying 50 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today. This is the place. The place of this speech is important. The Emancipation Proclamation. So he is invoking Lincoln right there. Then he says, it came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, what's 50? 100, yeah, score is 20. So 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. Very simple monosyllabic language. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. 100 years later, the Negro is still languishing in the corners of American society. New paragraph, shift. Shift to what personal pronoun? We. First person plural. Who does he mean here by we?
Everyone there with him.
Yeah, I think absolutely everyone. So you have 250,000 people about there. And King is saying, so we have come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. We have come to cash a check. The Declaration of Independence was a promissory note. This was a promissory note. But America has given the Negro people a bad check marked insufficient funds. Now, do you remember this theme in Douglas? The economic theme? How did Douglas talk about that? He made a specific reference to it.
Was it the silver, gold, and
Yeah,
bronze changing? Like being
yeah, certain people
interested in
like
money?
only certain kind of change, gold, silver, copper. This theme, and how did Du Bois begin his address? What did he say had happened? What was the verb he used? Steal, yeah, stolen, steal. How do you get across to people that they should have something that they don't have because other people won't let them have it? Well, it's a form of theft. But rather than say theft, he calls it a bad check, marked insufficient funds. Now, this part of the address is often not regarded or played or clipped or anything. But King is keeping in the tradition, and it is a tradition, that Douglas and others began. So he says, it's obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note. Does he need to present evidence of this? He doesn't particularly present evidence of it. The whole march is a protest. What had been occurring in the South? There are many things that had been occurring. What are some of them?
Lynchings, violence, KKK, but I mean, I think it was titled the March for Jobs, so it was a labor movement.
Yeah, it was labor, it was segregation. There were many things. King does not here stop to present evidence. He simply puts it as a case that in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation have essentially been closed to many people. So we have come to cash this check.